N.
The following program does not necessarily reflect the opinions of the staff, management, ownership of the station. Jay and Janine are expressing their own opinions, and such is not a substitute for psychological or mental health advice. If you are experiencing an emergency, please hang up and call 911.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Momentum Mindset Show, where we're talking everything personal development, coaching, health, and the law. I'm your host, Jay, here with co-host Janine.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Please join us on Facebook, where we can be found at the Momentum Mindset Show. And if you want to call in and be part of the show, we would love to hear from you. It's 888-565-1470. And if being on live radio is not your thing, no problem. Send us your comments and we will interact with you on Facebook.
Let's create some momentum. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Momentum Mindset Show. I'm your host, Jay Farrow.
And I'm your co-host, Janine Davis. Welcome, everybody. It's Friday, and I don't know what happens to the week. It's at a warp speed. It's like not even normal. Half the week, I don't even know what day it is because I'm so dazed and confused at how quickly it all goes. And we were just here. You
said something so powerful. It's like, this is our freedom hour. Like right before the show, and I thought, you know what? It really is, because
it so is.
I don't have to play myself for like the whole nonsense that I do on for the week right now.
True, and you know what? It's so funny. We just had an experience that we're doing. We're working on this little project, and it turns out that I am a wild horse. And I do not like to be tamed.
That's a big deal.
It is a big deal. And it brought up a lot of things to me that we'll unpack later.
People are like, what is this show about? You guys talk about wild animals already.
It's not that kind of show, y'all. Don't get too excited.
In your life, a life force. I mean, we are about creating the momentum mindset, which is about creating a mindset of movement towards the goals, the dreams, the aspirations. I mean, we're the show for the entrepreneur and anybody that's just going after life and asking for more life. I mean, this is a safe space for you. I mean, we talk about, what we go through on a weekly basis.
Absolutely.
As transforming a business, transforming our lives, transforming our bodies. It's not just one area. I mean,
or in my case, not transforming the body, which is something that we get to talk about as well.
How do you pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and move forward to the next? Yeah. Because, there's so many times that I can just want to crawl back into that bed, whatever that bed, looks like. I have 1,000 beds in my life, and I've just I got something inside me that says no, and it's called the momentum mindset. And so welcome to the show.
Welcome, everybody. And this is a great time, Jay, to invite people who may be listening on the radio or who are, on Facebook, live streaming us to give us a call. 888-565-1470. As much as we love the sound of our own voices, guess what sound we like more? Yours. So please call us.
Say the phone ringing.
Well, also,
that wouldn't be bad either.
Also, we would absolutely love to open up this conversation with other people. And today is a very special day because we have a guest today.
We do.
Who's coming on the half point of our show. Her name is Janine Robledo, my namesake. How many Janines does one Jay need in his life? He's got 3.
I have 3.
Three.
Janine, that's coming on the show right now, is my new piano teacher and really an exceptional human being, and I can't wait to hear her story.
Yeah, I can't wait to get into it.
I was just sharing with her about what July was like, my birthday, the whole month.
The whole month of July was Jay's birthday, and
we survived.
Can I tell you, again, the warp speed. The warp speed. It was not too long ago that we were just planning your Superman themed birthday party at an amusement park, and just where did the time go? It's already August.
It wasn't too long ago that we were taking cases at a couple $100 a month, and we only had one radio show.
Oh, Jay. Jay.
But so this week has been an interesting week. I've been in court 5 days this week, which is highly unusual, and I don't like to celebrate that fact, but I mean, I was there. And I will say this, on Monday or Sunday going into Monday, because I was going to Tampa for a hearing, I had gone to rent a mid-sized car at the.
Right. So this is how it goes. Let me explain this. So Jay's, we've got to make the travel arrangements for Jay. It turns out, he's going to rent a car to go, whatever. So I think, as the person who is the practice manager and ultimately the reluctant but acting CFO, we should get a sensible car. Something comfortable, something nice, of course, but sensible. Jay Farrow has a very different idea of what sensible is.
So I got the Corvette, right? And it had 600 horsepower, and it was a convertible. We made it as the obvious choice.
Right. Well, that's sensible all day long if that's your kind of thing.
I have not driven a car with 600 horsepower before.
I know. It was a joy to see you drive it.
Yeah, but a lot of stuff came up though when I was driving around with the car because I was.
Talk about it. What kind of things came up? Driving a car.
It was a big deal as a kid to think about the guy with the car, to seem like he's got it all. Like all my friends growing up. Some of them, they had wealthy parents and they had very nice cars, and it's like I had a lot of envy about the car,
interesting.
And I remember driving down the street when we would borrow one of my friends' cars. They had like Mercedes, this, to that, or whatever. We borrowed it from the parents, or whether they knew about it or not. And I'm going to save those stories for another time. But when we were driving around those cars, I remember like people looking at my friend. It's like, oh wow, look at that guy. And I really wanted to be him. And then what I was feeling when I was driving around this Corvette was like, well, people aren't even looking at me. They were looking at a concept. They were of what it looked like.
Well, they were looking at the story of what they think it is to be driving around in a Corvette convertible. So when I listened to this week by one of my heroes, Esther Perel, and she was saying that when you are in relationship with people or when you're observing people, you are really just picking a story. And so when people are looking at you driving around in that Corvette, they're actually creating a story of what it must be like to be you.
And I was uncomfortable.
Interesting, because you drive around in a Mercedes convertible. Please, pray tell, what is the distinction?
Because this thing makes a lot more noise than the other thing.
So,
if you're going down the street,
American muscle,
and you make this noise. Now, I used to get tagged. I mean, really tagged. I'm at an outdoor cafe.
So, for people who don't understand the concept of tagged, what he's really trying to say in like normal speak is annoyed,
the ever-living whatever out of me. I just I don't like it. The guys like they read their motorcycles and their cars. When you're trying to get something to eat. Yeah. I understand why you guys are doing that now. So,
it expanded compassion for you.
This show is actually, it turns out to be a huge forgiveness program. Because I had already, been convinced that most of you will be spending eternity in hell. So evidently you're not going. Lord. I'm sorry.
Or you'll be joining them, one or the other.
Rev the engines all you want. It's all about freedom, and I get it. I mean, it felt kind of good to do that, but it just felt a little bit uncomfortable because I was looked at like people saw right through me. They weren't really looking at me and connecting with me. So it was a little bit off. I mean, it felt a little bit inauthentic.
It's interesting. I can't. Okay, I shared some time with someone in my life many moons ago now, who told me that when he bought his Ferrari, he had the exact same feeling. Owned it for a month. Couldn't stand the way, exactly what you described, that people were looking through him. Only it's like the car became more important or bigger than him. It's like he was no longer seen anymore. And he sold it after owning it for a month.
This is what I experienced. It's like after driving the car for about 15 minutes, it went away that you're actually driving a car like this, especially on the highway. In other words, my brain did not allow me to like, oh, I'm in a Corvette. Oh, I'm in a Corvette. Oh, I'm in a Corvette. Like that feeling of oh my God, it wears off. So if you're thinking, and I don't know, I never really had this so much. I did want to be the guy who had the car and everything else, but I didn't. It wasn't like a need of mine. Mm-hmm. But what I did feel is that when I was outside of the car, or I was walking up to it in a public place, that's where I kind of got high. Where it was like, oh, I'm walking up to the Corvette. But once I got into the car, it was like not just no big deal. And then when you see the gas go like,
what a horse-powered fueled car, which is like big American muscle, is a gas guzzler.
But the thing is,
that's not shocking.
And this is the bigger point, and I wanted to flesh this out, is because all of those things and all of the stuff is not going to generate that happiness. And you hear it over and again.
All think it does, and it doesn't.
And when I stepped on the gas and I was going like 100 and some miles an hour, that was exhilarating. But that was exhilarating for a different purpose than just having like a really expensive car. I mean when I did buy that Mercedes, the concept was not that I wanted to drive around the Mercedes, although I did use it for this reason, to try to impress girls. And I'll just admit that. But
I know, good for you for admitting it.
But it wasn't the primary thing was to live into a different life, but it didn't create the life. And none of the things that I thought were going to happen when I was like driving a nicer car, I was like, oh, I'm living this life, I'm holding on to this thing, I'm looking at a Mercedes emblem, and it's like, you know what? None of that is creating any internal happiness. And I shared about this last year, especially this time last year. I just bought this Mercedes, and I'm driving around it for the first time in my life. Never think that I would own a convertible Mercedes in my life. And I'm driving around it and I'm having like suicidal thoughts because I was like going through depression. I mean, that's where my mind was at like last year. And thinking about where I've been in the last couple of years, it's just amazing to me that I don't have those thoughts anymore, one, but it's also amazing to me that there's no cure for that. You're not going to, here you go, drive this car, drive this, drive that. And even the wins that we've had, even the wins that I have in court, nothing actually made me feel better than the win that I had this morning, and it had nothing to do with money.
Yeah, please talk about that, because after you called me, I had a moment where I thought, and I even said to you, this is a superpower that you got to exercise today for this person, making a material difference in somebody's life, literally improving the quality of their life and actually ensuring a future for this person who a week ago, her life as she knew it was over.
Right, and I got the opportunity to support somebody in a criminal case this morning. And the result that was going to happen last week was like it was going to be catastrophic or potentially catastrophic.
Absolutely catastrophic.
And we were able to get her to a pretrial diversion program this morning, which was like unheard of. It was like the planets aligned. I mean, everything just worked out, and the judge just like really got it. And you know what was the thing is that not only did I show up for her, but she showed up for herself in her own way. Like when she called me and asked for help, like last week or 2 weeks ago, I can only imagine how difficult that conversation was, because I know who this person is and we hadn't spoken in a while. And what was also remarkable is that two people, and I want to say Joey and Jules.
And
I mean,
Joey.
I got to say, for you guys to show up this morning and support this individual was just, I mean, it really touched my heart in a way that
such good friends.
We had three people in court, and her, but we were just sitting there, and the judge put us to the end of the docket, so we had to be there for a couple hours, even though the hearing only took 2 minutes. But the thing is that the judge like saw us and was watching us in the courtroom, and they didn't leave. It's like when I told Joey, I'm like, hey, we're going to push the end of the docket. It's going to be a couple hours. He's like, I'm staying. I'm just going to pay for some extra parking. So that judge was looking at one human being supported by three other human beings. Right. And it was just a beautiful thing.
It is a beautiful thing. Let's talk a little bit more about it on the other side of this commercial.
Awesome.
Okay. Thank you. Please join us at the end of our break.
Farrow Law Firm, standing up to corporate bullies, using innovative, aggressive, and effective strategies to resolve disputes effectively and timely. Contact us at 954-252-9818, online at farrowlawfirm.com, and on Facebook at Farrow Law Firm. We look forward to being of service to you.
You've been listening to the Momentum Mindset Show
with Jay and Janine. Give us a call at 888-565-1470. And now back to the show.
Welcome back to the Momentum Mindset Show. And we were talking about a powerful topic before we left for the break. And we're talking about support. We're talking about showing up for other people and actually just standing by them in their time of need. And I got to experience that this morning in a criminal case. And I got to tell you, I'm still filled up by it. And the other thing is that for me to be able to support this person and have the honor of doing that today was really one of the highlights of my legal career. I mean, because this was not about money, and it was all about, like, I got to use all of my experience, because I had experience in this particular
and knowledge
field.
and connections and heart and all of it.
You know, and I told everybody that what my journey was in the courtroom. You know, and I said, look, I've gone through this. You know, I'm a graduate of drug court. You know, I know what this is, and they all kind of like, well, you said that. I'm like, yeah, I'm proud of that fact, because now I get to support people that are going through this, like this issue. You know, and it's like, you know, no big deal. I mean, and that's what it ultimately is. All of the conversations of how much is something a big deal, and then all you just tell somebody about it, and it just ends up being like, oh, really, that's it? You know, and getting that, like, oh, yeah, I've done that too.
Or if the person thinks that it is a big deal, it's a great opportunity to humanize it, dispel it, to say, to educate. You know, we all live in our own little bubbles. So for some person, a drug court incident might be something that is like, oh, so like end of the world or whatever it could be. But then to have the ability to explain it and to really be able to delve into the human condition that goes into creating what is how people even get there. It's about the human being.
Right.
The drug court is just a symptom of what goes on in human beings' lives. And it's about, we talk about this all the time, it's pick your poison, pick your toxicity. On the way up, we were talking about how people shut down emotionally. That's another way to anesthetize yourself. It's not with the use of substances, but it's no less detrimental and no less painful. So it really is just about being a human being.
But the feeling of service.
Yeah.
It's something that, it's not that I've missed it, and it's not that it's just been not as present, because you get busy and you're like, okay, well, you know, I got all these things to do, and I'm in service to myself and other things, but I didn't have to do this today.
No,
I didn't,
but in many ways you did for your soul, and for someone, you know.
But, you know, we were talking about, and we met one of Muhammad Ali's wife not too long ago, and you know, one of the things that I remember on one of the things in my former boss's office was Muhammad Ali, and he has this quote. It says, "Service to others is the rent that you pay for your time here on earth."
Absolutely.
And it was just, I got it this morning, and it was just beautiful. And I again, just to see other people as well, to show up, and be
beautiful,
and stand next to somebody. Again, they didn't have to be there either.
Right.
And just because this person showed up for themselves, and I've experienced a lot of that lately. There's a couple of private things that I've been working with some people on, that have been sending me some direct messages on Facebook. And what they've shared with me about their life story is not just remarkable what they've been through, it's remarkable that they're sharing it now. That they've held on to it for many, many years. And I'm reading this, and I'm privileged and I'm honored to read the one, you know, that it's great to have a voice. It's also wonderful to have an ear to listen to that voice. You know, and when you can be that ear and listen when someone's pouring their guts out, I mean, that saves lives. And I'm not talking about just suicide and the correction, but I'm talking about saving a life. I'm talking about the life that one person wants to create is this close. All they need to do is get out of their own way and share their story, and then have it listened to. And that few seconds that it might take to just hear somebody out, you know, that moment, you know, creates the space of possibility.
It really does, and it speaks also to community, right? How we're not islands. We are here together, and we create this community, and we create friendships and acquaintances, and we meet and we converge on each other's lives in such a way that is really very profound. And I feel like being in service to other people just by what you're doing, it seems so simple. By listening to someone, by being their confidant even, or being the safe space for them. It's a huge honor. It's a very, very huge honor. And I know that for me, I get to experience that quite a bit in my coaching practice. And it's honestly one of the things that makes me awestruck. And it's something that really drove me to coaching, because you are in service to that person for whatever length of time. It's never about you. It's always about them. And it's like you see that person light up where they are allowing themselves to be in that bubble of time and allow themselves to receive that it's only about them. And it's really, really freeing, because most people don't have that. They're so busy in their lives being a mom or a dad or a this or that they don't give themselves that 1 hour a week or however long it is to just allow themselves to be in the space of someone who holds it for them, to make it all about them, and reflect back their own greatness.
I've had some milestones over the last, I have this way of counting my transformational journey.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
One of them, that was a milestone about a week and a half ago, and that was day 500 of my intentional, like, I'm going to change my body, I'm going to change my business, I'm going to, not change it, I'm going to create the life that I want.
Right.
But I had another one. I had another milestone on Wednesday, and that was milestone where I hit 1,000 days from the first night that I was in a coma in November of 2016, and it's been 1,000 days since I was in a coma. I didn't even talk to the doctor yet. I was like still like in whatever land that I was, and to see what is possible in 1,000 days. I mean, we talk about like, oh my God, when are these cases going to settle? I mean, that money is right around the corner. This, that. I mean, we forget sometimes. And it really is the same thing like driving a Corvette or driving a Mercedes. You can forget unless you really get present to how wonderful your life really is, what you've actually built. So I've really taken the time over the last couple of days to acknowledge myself. I had this moment of just pure acknowledgement as I was eating my oatmeal. And I just felt like, you know what? I owe myself a big, not just pat on the back, but I love you to every cell in my body for getting me up every single day and allowing me to create the things in my life that I want to have in my life.
Yeah.
And it was 1,000 days, 1,000 days. And and then you're like, wait a second, I am driving a Corvette, and it's me, it's my life. It's really the whole representative of everything that I'm doing. And when I see people share with me, when we had a conversation last night, and I was like, oh my God, there she is. And I didn't get the chance to share this with you, but this is when we get home, like, because we're roommates, and we get home, it's like we maybe have like a 2 or 3 minute time to grunt at each other.
Yeah, because we're exhausted.
But last night we got into a conversation, and I'm listening to Janine, and she's like, I'm on and she's like, but I love it. I love going after this, and I'm going to take this on, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to get organized. I'm going to be up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and damn for sure you were. It was like, wow. But I was like, there she is. And I saw you step into, I'm like, that's what they mean when they talk about next level. It's not what your car you drive. It's not what's your bank account. It's like, hey, I'm taking life by the horns. I'm going after it, and I'm owning it. And as a matter of fact, it threw everything at me today, and I'm just going to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and do it again. And that's momentum. And that's that mindset of, you know what? I'm going to embrace the suck. I'm going to embrace that pain, and I'm going to use it and funnel it to create the life that I want. And it was just like, I saw that in you last night. I was like, woo! It's like amazing.
Thank you. Because it's interesting that you said that too, because I was rattling off a whole bunch of things. I'm like, and the distinction is I own it. I love it. I want it, and what's next? Because I am unbelievably stressed every single day. I really don't know what day it is half the time. And in many ways, I don't think I've ever been happier. I don't think I've ever been more complete. And I know there's so much more in the tank. I know that I've only scratching, I was sharing on the ride up here that I was like the potential kid, and that's what I think we all have in common, and Janine is going to come on here and talk about that too, but I was always the one with the potential, and I remember loathing that word as a child. I didn't even really understand what it meant. Your daughter has so much potential. My parents were like, well, if only she'd use it. And I'm like, oh, potential is something to loathe. So I associated that really young as a child. But now I'm like, oh, wait, I got more. There's potential. Ooh, now I'm connecting to what that is for me. And yes, it took a long time, Dad. I know you don't watch the show, but just in case you do, it took a long time. And but I know I'm exactly where I should be. And so thank you for acknowledging that. And a lot of other things have been coming up. It's just like that.
Potential was funny with me. I love how you brought that up because I got the same thing too. But yeah, potential was like one of those words like, it's not that you're not just doing something. It's not like you're just not doing your homework and you're just getting C's, okay? It's also, I want to let you know that you have the ability to do more and that you just,
you just won't. You're just that kid that.
Right. So it's not just that you're not doing it, but I'm just going to tell you that, yeah, I get that. That was.
I heard that a lot. And I was like, what is this potential everyone's talking about? And it did. I created a whole story around it. So, but now I circled back around to all of these years later. Now I'm like, oh, let me get a little familiar with that potential everyone was talking about. And it's a curiosity that drives, and it is the momentum mindset. Absolutely.
So on the side of this break, we're bringing on our guest. And
super excited. My namesake.
And mind you, I mean.
What's better than one, Janine? 2.
All right, we will see you in just a minute.
Farrow Law Firm, standing up to corporate bullies, using innovative, aggressive, and effective strategies to resolve disputes effectively and timely. Contact us at 954-252-9818, online at farrowlawfirm.com, and on Facebook at Farrow Law Firm. We look forward to being of service to you.
You've been listening to the Momentum Mindset Show
with Jay and Janine. Give us a call at 888-565-1470. And now back to the show.
And welcome back to the Momentum Mindset Show, Friday afternoon. And we have our first guest of the day. And it's been a while since we had a guest.
Yeah, it's been too long.
Janine Robledo, welcome.
Thank you.
And just a little bit of history. So Janine and I...
We're just going to call me Janine number 1. And I feel like I like that.
I have you in my phone as J9 and you in my phone as Janine Piano. Because
awesome.
when
we were confusing because there's actually a third.
Okay. So Janine and I, and I don't know if that work with the camera. All right, we were going to a party and we were outside of Barnes and Noble in Plantation, and I happened to notice that you had a flyer on the back of your car and with a little sign that said piano lessons. And I was like, for the longest time, I was like, I really want to go back and take some piano lessons and go back and get into the fundamentals. And so a couple months later, when we were being ready, I gave you a call, and so here we are. Mm-hmm. So welcome, because I want to talk to you about your business, because I know that you do give piano lessons.
Mm-hmm. And get into your story. You have a really interesting story, and I'd love for people to have the opportunity to get to know you.
Yeah, you can start where are you from, and what are you up to, even today. I mean, I know we're going to cover a lot in the next half an hour, so just take your time, feel free, and where do you come from?
Well, I actually grew up in Weston, and I lived there for the first 28 years of my life, and then I went off to New York on my big adventure.
So what made you leave Weston to go to New York?
Well, I actually, as I was telling you guys in a previous conversation, I struggled with some pretty severe anxiety my entire life.
Okay.
And it was to the point where, like I was telling Jay, I had to practice leaving my house to just go to my mailbox and come back, because it was like claustrophobia, agoraphobia, people, planes, anything would trigger a massive panic attack. I wouldn't go to public.
Did that start in high school?
It actually started early, like around the age of 12. I was taken out of school. I stopped going. It was really bad. It was debilitating.
Oh my goodness.
And there was like peaks and ebbs of it, like where it got really bad. But at its worst, I just wouldn't leave my house.
What was it about? Like, what do you think it was about?
Oh, well, after a lot of therapy, I had to really dig deep. And actually, interestingly enough, for me, a lot of the root of it was an inability to kind of express or even feel my own kind of anger. And the emotion turned into panic attacks. But I had no idea at that time that's what was happening.
Right.
I didn't even know I was angry about anything, and it could have been anything. But I kind of learned early on that having strong emotions, especially anger, was unacceptable, which kind of pushed me to, I guess, express the feelings in a different way.
Yeah, because it's energy, right? So we talk about this all the time. It's always got to go somewhere. It's going to deposit itself in your body somewhere.
Right.
So yeah,
It's
wow.
gonna come out somehow.
So you started these panic attacks and experiencing the severe debilitating anxiety at around the age of 12. And when was it at its peak?
12 was a big peak, and then I started some medications when I was about 14, and there were some ebbs and flows, and then in my 20s I had another big episode where it became really bad again. So it was different peaks, I guess, but around the time that I decided to do this crazy thing and apply to NYU, it was kind of a low. Like I had actually gotten past the most debilitating parts of my anxiety. I was a functioning working person at that point. But my days still felt like a struggle, and I felt pretty depressed about where my life was going because of my fears about just kind of living my life. And I was still very dependent on my family to support me when I did have a moment of anxiety. So there was like a codependency thing going on, and just like a lack of purpose and feeling very inhibited by myself, which was depressing.
So this is really interesting because, you're experiencing all of this. I'm sure it's very sort of isolating, but at the same time, there's this aspect of you, which I think is very exciting, that said, oh, maybe I should go to one of the most busy, hustling cities in the entire planet to treat my anxiety.
Something like that. The idea of New York had been introduced to me a few times by a ballet teacher when I was 12 who saw potential, by another therapist I had in high school that saw my, read my work, listened to the songs I had been composing.
Right. So this is where we get into the good, juicy stuff. Because please tell us all really the purpose of you going to New York.
To pursue my writing. I had been writing and composing music and poetry and stories since I was like 12, and it was like I was an old soul. It was very impressive. It was good, you know, and it was recommended to me back then that I go somewhere to pursue it, but my anxiety was, how can you even think of that? You can't even.
Right. You're trying to survive.
Yeah, I was trying to survive. And so, so basically, I wanted to move to New York, in some distant fantasy, because that's the place where, things
dreams
happen
come
and
true.
Dreams come true, and art, and, it's very different than Florida.
You were chasing Broadway.
I was chasing Broadway, or even just songwriting, because that's actually, the Broadway thing was an idea that I had to get into NYU.
Okay.
I had been writing songs and stories and poetry and things like that, but when I was trying to figure out how to get to New York, I researched schools because I thought, well, if I get my master's, I can get there.
Right.
How can I get there? What am I going to do?
Yeah.
And I saw the musical theater writing program, and I thought, well, I didn't get into FIU for classical piano, but I might have a shot at this.
Which is strange because
I
didn't get into FIU with classical piano when I applied, and I ended up doing musical theater at FIU.
That is amazing.
And they didn't have a program. I just created it. I mean, they had an opening for someone to write music for a film, and I filled that. And then from there were some couple plays I was allowed to work with, and because my grades were the way they were, because they needed someone to write this music for the film, we worked something out. So, but yeah, it's you were talking about New York and the dream. And what I find is just like 1 in a million people would do that on a normal day, and yet you were going through all of these challenges, and yet you did it. So, what was your driving force?
Yeah.
Well, at like age 28, I just kind of, like I said, I hit a point where I was like, Janine, you're safe here in your Weston house with your parents, and one day they're going to be gone. And you're kind of alone, and you don't really have friends because you're kind of like a hermit, and you just like write music alone in your room. What's going to happen to you one day if you don't conquer this? You're just going to grow old alone here. Are you going to end up like, I don't know. It was a scarier thought than actually pushing myself to do something crazy. Kind of like if you're afraid to fly, but isn't it scarier, to like be trapped? in your house and never get to go anywhere than to just risk. I kind of had to tell myself that this was scary moving to New York, but the alternative was scarier. And it was like, it became do or die. You have to do this.
This is what we find time and time again.
But what she's talking about is the most powerful piece about momentum. And it's about going after that thing. It's like, when you get to that point where you recognize that the pain of staying is less than the pain of not doing that.
Exactly.
And this is why I find just absolutely fascinating about your story.
Yeah.
And so when you went up to New York, right?
I went up. I shared a 400 square foot studio with 2 other girls.
So you got into NYU.
I got into NYU.
Which is a tremendous feat in and of itself.
Thank you. I was very shocked. I thought, I might as well try it. I'll have to find a way to get to New York. But I didn't think after my FIU rejection that I would get in. But I did. And
did you have to do piano performance as well?
No, this was musical theater writing. So it was just based on writing songs, writing lyrics, writing stories, writing music. And they accepted me actually as a words person and a music person. They had 2 tracks. But I chose music because I don't like to notate music. I chose words because I don't like to notate, but I was honored that they allowed me to make that choice because I do both things. And then it was time to just start learning to write musicals, and of all things, I ended up realizing that I write comedy.
Oh, wow.
People would ask me, how did you learn to be so funny? How did you learn to write comedy? I said, I spent 28 years having an existential crisis, but besides that, it's
true. Well, they say that most comedians have some form of anxiety or depression or whatever.
Oh yeah, nothing's funnier.
And the truth is, nothing is more healing than laughter.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Laughing about it.
Yeah,
definitely.
absolutely. Mm-hmm. Oh wow. Okay, so you're in New York. You're in this program, and what happens?
Program and I get off the plane the first day, and I step out into New York, and my apartment's up the stairs, which getting out of breath was a trigger for me because the heart racing, anxiety attack, everything was a trigger. And the noise, and I remember telling Jay the other day, I would go into the subway because I had to meet someone, and I would freak out and leave and go back up the stairs. And I'd go down and this would happen 20 times, and I would go up and I'd cry. I can't do this. It was every day was like that. It was a new challenge of actually trying to survive in New York City for someone with immense anxiety.
New York can be terrifying for a person who has anxiety.
Right.
And then there was the program, which was 12 hours a day, and it was professors.
How long? How many years was the program?
It was 2, but it was 3 years condensed into 2, credit-wise, because they kind of just condensed it. So it was 24 credits a semester. So it was all day.
Wow.
And weekend work. It was completely.
Good Lord, that's very intense.
Yeah. So you're presenting your work in front of the class and in front of professors, and they're critiquing you.
When you say you're presenting your work, what is that? How do you? What does that mean?
The first year is a bunch of small projects and assignments scene and song, write a scene and a song, and you collaborate. It's always 2 people collaborating together. One person does music or one person does words, or both people do both, just kind of depending on how you want to do it with that person. And there's only 30 people in each cycle in each year, so you take turns collaborating with everybody.
Okay.
And then there was classes on lyric writing, classes on playwriting. You take all the classes, and then you do labs, which are basically you write your assignment and everyone presents it, and then you get in a circle and you discuss it, you get critique, and you go over the script.
It's rigorous.
It's rigorous.
That sounds really rigorous.
And you might hear that, someone might say in front of everybody, I don't like this at all, and I don't get what you're trying to do. You have to take a lot of criticism.
Right.
It's daunting. Cause
this is what I'm saying. For someone...
I know. This the whole time you're talking, I'm like, how could someone with this level of anxiety throw themselves? But this is also a testament. And this could sound to some people a little woo-woo, but you know what? I'm a co-host, so it's my show too. So I'm just gonna go there. This to me, when I hear you, it's like your soul saying, "No matter what, kid, you're not getting out of here without honoring this gift." So it's like, you have the anxiety component of it, that sort of mental side of it, but then there's something inside of you that's higher, greater, and more demanding of you than that said, show up.
Certainly. Mm-hmm.
That's it. And that is amazing. And this is really the testament, I think, of music or art, or for somebody else, it could be something, whatever it is for you, and I think we all have this. Some people it knocks a little harder, like it knocked on your door at the age of 28 and woke you up. And I think that we all have those sort of soul knocks throughout our lives. You know, Jay, you've had yours. I know I've had mine. You know, it's interesting. When I left my job that I'd been at it for 10 years, I'd been there for a decade, and adored the people I worked with, but was not fulfilled professionally. I realized I had no savings, I had no safety net, no nothing. But similar to you, staying was more frightening to me and intolerable more than the fear of just getting all of the safety and the comfort.
Now, was that one
from
conversation? Was that one conversation for you? I mean, you said you had it with yourself. Like, okay, I recognize my mom and dad. They're not going to be here forever. I'm not going to be. If I'm.
Yeah.
if
Was
I'm
it
just
like a
doing-
one and done, or was it a process?
In other words, like you had this experience, like, wow, I got to get moving, and then from that on, or did it rear its ugly head? I mean, when you were saying that you were in these subways, you ever think about going home? Did you ever call home?
Oh, I did. My parents said, you know what, you don't have to do this, because I was just crying in the streets, like certain days, like running through the streets of Manhattan crying, like I can't do this.
No, and I love it because in Manhattan, that's not unusual.
it's
No one's
fine.
stopping to ask you
Yeah.
what's wrong because it's like normal.
Yeah, I did, but I just knew that it was, like I said, do or die. Like a panic attack is like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna die. I said, you know what, fine, die here in the subway, you're not going home. That was it. It was just,
Yeah.
you know, it just
So
had to
that's
be.
like definitely a soul hijack because
Yeah.
your brain all day
And-
long was like, go home.
And in return for this, though, I mean, you had some pretty big names work on your stuff, or at least when you said that you had your thesis, which is really like a show, right? Like that you wrote a show.
But our second year is writing a thesis, yeah.
And then you
It's
said
his whole
that,
show, basically.
and then you had some pretty big names that would come from.
They came as guests. Into NYU. Like we got to meet Winnie Holtzman, who wrote Wicked, and you know they would come as a guest, and we'd have like little workshops with them. And
Wow.
yeah, the exposure.
But
was
didn't you have
amazing.
like a huge actor play the lead role or play a role in your thesis?
Yeah, that was also one of the cool things about the program is they actually got real Broadway actors. You know, the one actor that I had was somebody that I saw in Les Mis 10 years ago when I was
Wow.
visiting, and he
That's
was the lead
amazing.
role in one of my projects, and I just couldn't believe it, and it was amazing.
That is a pinch me kind of moment,
It was a
right?
pinch
Up
me
when
kind
you're
of
showing
moment.
up for yourself. I mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he liked it.
Yeah.
I said, wow.
Yeah. Well, this is about possibility, right?
But also, what you get when I'm listening to your story, and I see what you're getting rewarded with. Okay. And it's like, and that thing about the universe showing up for you, even
Yeah.
for someone like you, you posted, not even posted, she left again, this all started because she said, what did you say, something about the universe? Like if, they said.
For your piano lessons.
Yeah, the piano lessons.
Oh, yes, because people were making fun of me for posting an old piece of paper flyer on the back of my windshield wiper. And I said, well, if the universe is going to provide, someone will see this. You know, if I ask, there will be an answer. And
So this
that's
was a couple of months ago, and then when
Yeah.
I was ready to, I left your name because your name was Janine, by the way. It's like, you know, it was a no-brainer to give you
He's
a
like,
call on this, so.
I've had good luck with a couple of Janines. I'm good.
Yeah.
And so but the rewards that you get for the work that you've done, okay, is and I can see it. I mean, from the people that you've talked to, and you have a show coming up in New York.
I do.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about that on the
Yeah.
other side of this break. And I want to know, because this is just keep going with what has shown up when you've shown up for yourself.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
Farrow Law Firm, standing up to corporate bullies, using innovative, aggressive, and effective strategies to resolve disputes effectively and timely. Contact us at 954-252-9818, online at farrowlawfirm.com, and on Facebook at Farrow Law Firm. We look forward to being of service to you.
You've been listening to the Momentum Mindset Show.
With Jay and Janine, give us a call at 888-565-1470. And now back to the show.
And welcome back to the Janine Show. I mean,
Finally, Jay, you acknowledge. I mean, I didn't want to knock you off single-handedly, so I enlisted another Janine to do the job with me.
Welcome. And if your name is Janine, today's your lucky day because these are, two of the very most special Janines in my life. I do have another.
That's right.
He's my personal trainer. And you want to talk about the universe. I mean,
I know, it's ridiculous.
I know. It's just.
And the funny thing is, growing up, and I know this Janine also had this experience. I couldn't find a Janine. I couldn't throw a stone to ever find a Janine. No. But by the way, I also had never met really a Jay. And I mean, I lived all over the world, so I could have met a lot of Jays.
True.
And now I can't. Now I throw a stone and I hit a Jay.
Okay.
It's unbelievable.
And you have a sister, right?
I do. And her, yeah. Her name is Laura, also in English, Laura. And we just found out that
my sister's name is Laura.
Hi, Laura. And I was like, and I saw someone write into the show and just say hi, and I was like,
hi, Laura.
Oh, that's my sister. I'm like, no, this is not happening.
No, this is so not happening. So bizarre. No, it gets more bizarre, but you know.
So you have a show. This part, I understand that you have a show that's coming for an upcoming theater or
it's still a workshop production.
Okay.
It's a part of the Emerging Artists Theater's new work series. So it's a showcase of a bunch of up and coming musicals. And we're hoping that someone will come and see it and produce it.
Okay, so what's the name of the show and what's it about?
The name of the show is The Curious Contents of Christie's Wastebasket.
Awesome. The name is so awesome. It's so cool.
Curious Contents of Christie's Wastebasket.
Yeah. It's like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, but for Broadway. I love it.
A little bit, yeah.
And so
I love it.
How did the concept of this show come about, and when did you write it? And
I did 2 thesis projects, actually. That's another story, but it was a thesis project. And my composer, Aidan Kent Ramsey, we got together. We brainstormed with ideas, and it's, everything I write is somehow based on me in some way.
Sure.
And my experiences. And so the initial inspiration actually came from a Korean folktale that I was looking in the library. I was just reading it randomly about this writer, it was some guy, and these characters from the stories come out of the stories and try to kill him in his sleep or something. It was a really weird Korean folktale, but somehow it sparked the idea for this, this show.
Well, that's how creativity works,
just
right?
Yeah.
There's no rhyme, no reason.
Is a musical?
It's a musical comedy. Mm-hmm.
And then when you get to an opportunity to do, what's your favorite part of? Because I love theater because I've written for the Underscore for live theater, and there's nothing like just being when the lights go down, and then you just have that blank canvas, and everybody in the room is equal. And for me, just that performance. What's your favorite part of the theater? I mean, that's obviously for you. I mean, you've battled your life to get to where you're at right now, and now you're about to put something on that could potentially go on Broadway. What's your favorite part of it?
Well, I definitely enjoy the process because I could write music and lyrics all day. But for me, I spent so long kind of alone, kind of cut off. And when I'm in the theater and I see my show, or even in rehearsal, and I see people connecting with something that I've wrote that comes from me in a very personal way. It's amazing. I just feel so connected, whether they're laughing or being inspired, or I'm just, it's like the best way I can connect with other people. And that's for me, that's it, and if I'm in the audience,
it sounds like
aliveness.
Laughing, it sounds like being alive.
It's alive, and it's you're connecting in this moment, it's so present, in the theater, everyone is experiencing this thing simultaneously together in this moment, and it's, live.
Right.
Yeah. And I'm in the audience experiencing my own show with everybody else,
that's got to be,
which is super.
That must be such an incredible trip to see your mind's eye being performed right in front of you. That is amazing.
So tell me a little bit more about this production that you're putting on. When is it? And we have a whole audience here, and we're gonna
please tell the audience
the support,
what it's about.
So the performance is going to be October 2nd at 9 p.m. At the Tadal Theater, which is in the Flatiron District of Manhattan. It's a very cozy. It's a family-friendly theater. They do a lot of family productions, And the show is the main character, Christy. She's kind of just like struggling to figure out what she wants. She's switched majors a lot of times. She's in and out of relationships. And she decides on her 30th birthday to try writing. Like out of nowhere, like she's already done everything else, and she tells her,
I'll be a writer.
Yeah, it's like her new thing.
Got
and her
it.
apartment's a mess. She's behind on her rent. So she tries to write these stories, and like everything else, she gets frustrated and ends up giving up on each one, like kind of halfway through. So the characters in these unfinished stories conspire and decide to come get out of their stories and confront her, like, hey, you just left us hanging.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's consequences to this. You can't just start something and not finish it. Where's my dog? That guy was going to, there's a Zorro character, there's a cowboy, there's an alien writing his thesis. And I mean, it's all
And they want to live.
And they want to go on. And they're
Yeah.
like, look, they come and literally, Zorro threatens her and says, get out of bed and do this. And she's like, whoa. And there's one character, the unfinished man, who she actually crumples up his story and throws it away, and he goes into the void. And he tells her about this kind of experience that he had when she threw him away, of being in the void and basically what it feels like to not exist. And all of this really moves her, and she starts to really think about, wow, when I don't finish things, when I don't commit to things, there are consequences.
Right.
And and
This
she
is like, I mean, what
Wait.
we see on this show.
Do.
I mean, that's the thing. When we say this is life and death, like that, the issues we talk about are life and death, is because if you don't create the life you want, you've crumpled up. Like, if you create goals and then you crumple them up, that person that's experiencing those life with those goals goes into that void.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's really profound.
Okay, so what? How can we help? How can anybody help? Like, what are you
Right. So
looking for?
let's explain a little bit about
Okay.
that. Right. So Janine was sharing with us that she it has this production is going to go on, but she'd like to beef it up. She'd like to make it a little extra, right? So it's sponsored by this up and coming theater people. So it's it's sponsored kind
Right,
of,
partially.
but. And like anything is sponsored, their idea of what's necessary and the artist's vision, the idea of what's necessary, there's a gap. So let's talk a little bit about the gap. And that gap is financial, people. Let's not play around. We're talking money, honey. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we would really like to get some instruments in there besides the piano and the guitar. We'd like some drums, because it's the songs are amazing. Like they're like, they have a pop rock aesthetic, a lot of them, and they would just sound so much more amazing with the additional instruments. So that's one thing we'd like to add, definitely. And,
Okay. So how can people support you financially to get this show with the extra little bells and whistles that would take it a little over the top?
I mean, I guess this is the age of like Kickstarter and GoFundMe. I mean, $20 or $50 from a bunch of people could easily add up to.
It
To
adds
what?
up.
To what?
To what? I mean,
What's your goal?
What's the goal?
I want to say to make this like the best possible show ever, maybe 10,000.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. So call it out there. People, Janine is on Facebook, Janine Robledo. That is you spell your own name.
Yes. JANINE
Awesome. So you can, get a private DMs or whatever, and then people can donate and contribute to your show
Now,
if they want.
and the other piece of this is you do private lessons.
I do.
Okay, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, it started with my car flyer that you found, and
Yes.
I decided I would also like to do some teaching while I'm here in Florida, while I'm also working on my shows. So I'm teaching anything from songwriting to singing to piano. I did my bachelor's in classical piano, so that is another little.
Could someone get some tips from you? Because I know there's a lot of theater people, like especially going to American Heritage and a lot of the magnet schools that are down here. I mean, could you tutor somebody in what you learned from NYU as far as their musical theater?
Oh, certainly.
And how would people get in touch with you? What's the best way to get in touch with you for those lessons?
You could email me. My email is easy. It's my name @gmail.com.
My name at gmail.com?
Yeah, Janine Robledo.
Thank you for clarifying that, Jay.
Yes. We talked about Janine so much today. I didn't want to say it again. But Facebook is good. You can give it my.
Okay, you want to give out your number?
Sure, I can have my number. It's
Okay.
954-290-3029. Yeah, texting.
Fantastic. Yeah.
And I want to thank you for coming. And again, just about the journey that you took to get to where you're at.
Yeah.
Is
because the
just-
musical accomplishments are by themselves beyond amazing. But what it took for you as a human being to get there is like, wow.
She shared a story, and if you don't mind if I shared
Beautiful.
about it was a win for her just to go out and check the mail sometimes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then to work through that, thinking that the pain of staying where you are is worse than going and not getting what you want. And I love that analogy about that guy that didn't get to live, the one that the story. Who
The
is it?
Unfinished Man.
The Unfinished Man. I mean, that's what we talk about this a number of times about. That if you're gonna stop, if you don't keep going, if you don't use the tools, and then you don't reach that goal, whatever it is for you, becoming a writer, becoming an artist, becoming a pianist, becoming
an attorney, becoming a coach, whatever it is for you.
Because if once you crumple up that thing, you become the unfinished man. I mean, that's just such a profound analogy, and it just I can picture that, and that's what we're talking about the show being the safe space for people to call in, to talk to us, to shoot us a message on Facebook, because we don't want anybody to be the unfinished man. I mean, that's really what it's all about. I mean, and we are stronger together. I'll keep telling you that. And to that end, we will see you next week.
Yes, thank you everybody for tuning in with us, and we appreciate you. Thank you so much, Janine. And we will and we will see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Momentum Mindset Show. For your hosts, Jay and Janine, we'll see you here next week. Thank you for being real, authentic, and honest.
If you'd like to reach us, please contact us on our Facebook page, The Momentum Mindset Show, or on our office phone line, which is 954-559-6987.
We are stronger together.
And remember, keep going.